You know, they got so much technology here in Orville, I can't keep up. But anyway, I'd like, because there's a good turnout today, I think we should join together as Americans and pledge our flag. Please join me in salute the flag of our nation. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under God. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Bolin,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Chair Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Thanks.
Commissioner Sharman, Commissioner Betts,
Here.
alternate Commissioner Rust, alternate Commissioner Bradley, alternate Commissioner Ritter, alternate Commissioner Shepherd. Thank you.
Any errors, changes, or admissions to the agenda? Mr. Lucas? Okay, we'll move on. New commissioners? Mr.
Commissioner is.
That would have been embarrassing being the chair of California LAFCo if I hadn't have been reappointed, so it went all right. Okay, consent agenda. Would any person up here on the podium like to pull anything from the consent? Any public interest in the consent agenda? Any electronic? I'll entertain a motion, please.
A motion to approve. Second.
All those in- call the roll.
Commissioner Bolin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Aye.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3, notice public hearings 23-14, City of Chico, Paradise Extension of Sewer Services.
Commissioner, I'll need, or Chairman, I need to recuse myself according to the FPPC.
Okay. We will send somebody out in the hall and get you as soon as this is over. How's that?
It should be all done.
You can just reflect in the record the alternate city member.
Okay.
Okay, good morning, commissioners. So this is a proposal from the city of Chico to extend wastewater treatment services to the town of Paradise. The services would be extended outside of the city's jurisdictional boundary and sphere of influence to the town of Paradise, and would facilitate the Paradise Sewer Project, reducing the town's reliance on septic systems and supporting the town's recovery and rebuilding efforts after the 2018 Camp Fire. So I just want to talk about some of the infrastructure involved in the Paradise Sewer Project. There are 3 components to the system, the first being the core collection system. This infrastructure would serve parcels along the town's primary transportation corridor and business corridors, including the Skyway, Clark Road, and Pearson roadways. It would be extended to about 1,500 parcels, and these parcels are identified in the town's housing element as within the sewer service area, parcels that are identified for increased densities and intensities because of their location along these corridors. The extended collection system is essentially everything to the town's jurisdictional boundary, and that have potential to perhaps someday connect to the sewer system. And then the export pipeline is the actual pipeline extending from the town's boundary down the Skyway, and then eventually connecting to the water pollution control plant out on River Road. So just, I won't talk about the whole 35 plus years of history of how we've got here, but just to talk about some key points. The town has been exploring options for connecting to some sort of sewer system since its incorporation in 1979. Multiple studies have been done over the years that show that due to failed septic systems, there's high levels of fecal coliform in the water supply that drains away from the town of Paradise. In 2017, a study, the Town of Paradise Sewer Project Alternatives Analysis and Feasibility Report was done analyzing 3 options with connection to the water pollution control plant being the best alternative. Then, of course, in 2018, the Camp Fire destroyed 11,000 homes and 1,000 businesses in the town. And then connection to or installation of some sort of sewer system was identified as a key project during outreach by the town after the Camp Fire. So in 2019, they expanded upon the 2017 study and explored options on how the impacts of the Camp Fire affected that study. And in addition to that, in 2020, received a memorandum from the Regional Water Quality Control Board identifying that connection to the city's pollution control plant was the best option and the most feasible. So in 2021, the town and city formed a collaboration committee, the Sewer Regionalization Project Advisory Committee. This panel met several times over 2021 and 2022 and formed the came up with the intermunicipal agreement, which is essentially the contract between the town and the city. That, of course, is very extensive and has lots of language, but I'll just point out some key points of that contract. Is that the city would provide 0.464 million gallons per day of capacity to the town of Paradise, which was identified as the rate of flow at full build out of these areas, which is estimated to be about a 57-year time span. If at any point during the next 57 years or beyond, the town comes close to reaching 90% of that capacity, then further studies would need to be done to evaluate if more capacity is needed or how the town can begin to minimize their capacity needs. The town will pay $14.9 million for its capacity upfront prior to any connection to the sewer system. And the town will own the entire export pipeline and be responsible for all operations and maintenance of the system in the town, the export pipeline, and the line that extends to the water pollution control plant. So the way this commission fits into the process is that Government Code 56133 provides that a agency cannot extend service outside of its jurisdictional boundary unless approved by LAFCo, and gives parameters for allowing those extensions and provides that it should be in response to an existing or impending threat to health or safety of the public or residents within the territory, and gives 2 criteria: that the entity applying provides documentation to the threat and health and safety of the public, and that the commission has notified alternate service providers. So this proposal does meet those in that the town has provided years of documented evidence of fecal coliform and septic effluent in the water supply. And that as septic systems continue to fail, they continue to contaminate the groundwater underneath, and which affects groundwater and surface water in the area. The parcels identified in the core collection system have the highest probability of groundwater degradation because of their concentrated uses, poor soils, high groundwater, and limited parcel sizes. And without this project, the town would continue to rebuild, relying on septic systems, which just perpetuates the problem. And then, of course, there are no other alternate service providers in the area that could collect, treat, and dispose of wastewater generated by the town of Paradise. LAFCo policy provides 5 factors when considering an extension of services outside of a agency's jurisdictional boundary and sphere of influence. And this project satisfies those factors in that the city of Chico can provide the service without detriment to its existing customers. The proposal is consistent with the Town of Paradise General Plan and its housing element. It would not result in growth levels beyond pre-fire populations or growth anticipated by the general plan and housing element. Conditions of approval on the project prohibit connection of the to the export pipeline outside of the town's boundaries. And the project would not result in the premature conversion of ag lands. So in addition to that, we're asking you to consider some conditions of approval that basically state that no other services would be allowed by the city of Chico into the Town of Paradise. That wastewater service would not be made available outside of the town's jurisdictional boundary along the export pipeline. This could be considered at a future date with additional consideration by this commission pursuant to Government Code 56133 and pursuant to CEQA guidelines. An extensive environmental document was prepared by the Town of Paradise as they are the lead agency. So this commission's responsibility is to make its own environmental findings pursuant to CEQA guidelines. Those findings are included in Resolution 23-22-23 and say that the project, the environmental impacts of the project were assessed adequately by the town. Mitigation measures are included to minimize the effects of the impacts, that a mitigation monitoring program is in place that is to be implemented by the town, and that no environmental concerns unique to LAFCo are included in the project, so no additional environmental review is necessary. So today I'm asking that you consider any comments received today and adopt Resolution 23-22-23 approving the project, subject to the conditions of approval and making findings regarding the environmental document included today. And if you have any questions, we have lots of staff from both the town and the city available.
Questions or comments by the commissioners? Is there electronic comment on this item?
We received one email last night that you would have in front of you today,
Mr. Brobat, right here.
Mr. Stonebreaker.
Oh, Stonebreaker.
No, different.
Wrong guy.
Essentially, I'll just kind of summarize that he does support the connection, the sewer connection. He has some questions about extending the sewer service outside of the town's boundaries in the future. And as I said, that's all possible with further study and further environmental review. And then he does question the sewer pipeline alignment in correlation with the city's potential to annex Valley's Edge. And they're two physically separate pipelines. So the town will own its own pipeline down the Skyway, down Hagen Lane. So it essentially does not affect the Valley's Edge pipeline in the future. And he goes on to talk about water into Little Butte Creek and Little Chico Creek. And I don't quite understand the question, but my answer is that water treated at the pollution control plant is discharged into the Sacramento River. So none of this will affect Little Chico Creek or Butte Creek.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments by the commissioners again?
I had one, Shannon, and that is, I think you mentioned in there that there will be no opportunity for any other subdivision outside of the city of or the town of Paradise. So if for some reason the Tuscan Ridge development did proceed, they would not be allowed to tap into this sewer system. Is that correct?
So there's two sort of layers to that. The first would be that we would need to consider that under Government Code 56133. So essentially another extension of services request by them to allow that service to be provided along that line, that sewer line. The second being that the line is a gravity sewer line. So that flow is going to be flowing quite quickly down that line, and it's probably not even physically possible that someone could tap into the line. Of course, that could be engineered differently in the future, but it's not designed for connection along the sewer line at any point beyond the town.
Any other questions or comments? I'll open public comments. This time I have a card from Mr. Richard Harriman. Good morning, Richard. We meet again. Ah, it's fine.
Richard Harriman.
Thanks. Good morning, Chairman Conley, members of the commission, Richard Harriman. I'm a resident and taxpayer and voter in the city of Chico. And I just have one question through the chair to staff is there going to be a provision for when the town general plan will be updated? Because that was the main concern I had, and I'll take the answer off the air. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lucas.
The town is currently pursuing an update to their general plan. Their
Delegator now. I just want everybody to notice, see how Mr. Lucas delegated that out right like that.
Thank you.
Proceed.
The housing element's been updated. I think 2 other elements are currently underway, and this fall they should kick off the entire update to the general plan. So it's underway.
Your
And if I
answer,
could
Mr.
just follow up on that comment is that the part of the reason why we've conditioned it to not be access to the entire town at this point and strictly to the core area was for that very reason. As the town develops its general plan, that extended out build out area may ultimately change in its land use density requirements and so forth. So we would want to see that before we looked at an extension of the core system. So they are linked together. It's just not right now that it's necessary.
Second question, Mr. Chairman, Richard Harriman again.
One more.
Shouldn't that be amended into the approval or deferred until the general plan has been updated? I think that would be more prudent. The town's already going through all of the efforts and presumably looking at the financing, but without the general plan update, which has been delayed since the 1980s, I really don't think you should approve it today. I think you should defer it until that general plan is updated. Thank you
Thank
for the
you.
opportunity.
Your comments are noted and please email them in too also. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? I'm going to close public comment. Bring it back to the wishes of the board. Now, is this a one motion for all of it? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the staff report
And
as presented by staff. Second.
that means we're approving all the recommendations on this. Everybody clear? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Shepherd,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGrehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is 3.2 LAFCo Public Review Draft Municipal Service Review of Water and Wastewater Service in the Orville region. Before staff comes forward this, I want everyone to know LAFCO is not in the position to force any consolidations or condemn anybody's property or do any of the things that I've caught by email. We simply do a report of the facts, how we see them through our staff, and you're more than welcome to make comments, which will be duly noted and put into the record. But this is no way a way to consolidate a district or dissolve a district or condemn anybody's land or do anything like that. I don't know where these rumors come from, but I want to spell them right up front. That would be if the public woke up and wanted to do something. With that, staff, please do your presentation.
Sure. I'm actually, I'll introduce the project and then our consultant is here. She'll be able to give more details on the project. But this is an endeavor we began nearly 2 years ago to evaluate water and wastewater services that are provided in the Oroville region. The municipal service review includes South Feather Water and Power Agency, Thermalito Water and Sewer District, Lake Oroville Public Utility District, the Sewerage Commission, Oroville Region, the City of Oroville, and Cal Water. So today we're asking that the commission consider all the comments provided today, give staff direction to update or make any changes to the MSR that you see fit, and approve the document and give staff direction to make those changes to the final version of the document. So I will ask that our consultant step forward so that she can give a more detailed presentation.
So Shannon, Shannon, we're not, if we want changes to this, we would not be approving this. We would send
be
it back to staff and then bring it back at a further meeting.
We don't anticipate needing to bring it back, or we think that you can today recommend some changes that you want to be put in the document, and give staff direction to make those changes to the final document that would then be published.
Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present this municipal service review. Before I begin, I wanted to acknowledge the assistance and level of help that staff from each of the 6 providers gave to the consulting team and to LAFCo by providing key pieces of information. And then also my consulting team is very grateful for the advice and assistance we received from
So could
LAFCO's.
you please give us your name?
Oh yeah,
for the
my name
record?
is Kateri Harrison. I'm a consultant with Swale Incorporated. It's
Thank you
a
very much.
consulting firm. So we received assistance from LAFCO's executive officer, Steve Lucas, and from the deputy executive officer, Shannon Costa. So maybe the next slide. And then as we go through the presentation, you're more than welcome to ask me any questions and we can pause. The task that LAFCO assigned to our consulting firm was simply to update the municipal service review. There had been previous municipal service reviews approved by the commission in 2007, 2009, 2014, and more recently in 2018. So we just did a simple update. It's a standard municipal service review. The only big difference is we updated the data, of course, but this municipal service review also has a bibliography and in-text citations so that you can see where we got the information. Other than that, it's very standard MSR, just like all the other ones posted on LAFCO's website. And we didn't see any red flags for any of the agencies. So that's the key point up front. No red flags. Next slide, please. This is the table of contents for the municipal service review. So each district has its own chapter, and then there are also 13 appendices. And then within each chapter for each agency, there are the standard determinations under the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, such as disadvantaged and unincorporated communities and financial ability to provide services. Next slide, please. Here's a list of the agencies and the services they performed. This MSR is only focused on water and wastewater. Next slide, please. The first agency covered in the MSR is the City of Oroville. And this slide highlights the determination, growth, and population projections for the affected area. So this determination was studied for each service provider. And this is just an example where to show you that we calculated the existing population and future population. We also took a look at the boundary. So the City of Oroville's geographic boundary is 13.7 square miles and has 7,400 assessor's parcels. And then as you can see on this map, the sphere of influence is quite large at 53 square miles. Next slide, please. We prepared several maps for each of the service providers, including analysis of census tracts, farmlands, and then also the general plan land use map. Next slide. This slide highlights the Lake Oroville area PUD, and they provide wastewater services. The particular determination that we're using as the example here is the location and characteristics of any disadvantaged unincorporated communities. And here in this case, there are a few within Lake Oroville's boundary. They're highlighted in red on this map. Just to give you a level of comparison with the city, Lake Oroville area PUD, their boundary encompasses 13.4 square miles, and they have 5,500 assessors parcels in their boundary. Their sphere of influence is 20,000 acres, so also quite large. One thing I wanted to point out on this slide too is the determinations. You'll see in that table on the left column are indicators, and those are like key performance indicators. We use the same indicators for each agency to allow cross comparisons and to treat everybody fairly. And then the analysis is on the right-hand side of the table. Next slide, please. These are the same maps, but for showing the Lake Oroville area PUD. Again, there's farmland, general plan, and the boundary and sphere of influence that you can see a little bit with a Lake Oroville area PUD's boundary shown in green on the map on the right. The middle map showing the general plan, what we did is we crosswalked the city of Oroville's general plan with the county general plan. So the county general plan land use map covers only the unincorporated part of the county, and the city general plan, of course, covers the city. So we kind of use the same color coding.
Don't you think they ought to change the city boundaries? It looks like Bullwinkle the moose standing on a bucket, Rocky the squirrel on his back, and something hanging off his tail. I mean, I just can't ever get over that. We need to fix that. Sorry, get back to serious stuff.
Next slide, please.
You can't.
This is the South Feather Water and Power Agency, and this slide highlights the determination present and planned capacity of public facilities. And that's one of the main purposes of an MSR, is just to look at, does this district have enough capacity to continue providing services to the customers? And of course, South Feather and Water Power Agency, the answer is yes, they do. They're a very well-run agency. They have a 5-year strategic plan that includes a capital improvement plan. And they diligently work to implement those plans. And that's what we discussed in this section of the MSR. One thing you'll notice on the map for this district is that the boundary also has an irregular shape, but there are also 19 detached parcels, as well as isolated pockets east of the main area shown in brown, the main boundary area. And that's because South Feather Water Power Agency has hydroelectric facilities and dams up in their upper watershed. And then the water flows downhill where they collect it, treat it, and distribute it to the customers. Next slide. Again, the same 3 farmland, general plan, census tract maps. Next slide, please. This slide describes the sewage commission of the Oroville region and considers the financial ability of the agency to provide services. And this question about finances is the key area of emphasis in the MSR. We actually looked at 10 key performance indicators. I could only fit a few of them on the slide, but for the sewage commission, one of the key indicators shown on the very first line in the table is, do revenues exceed expenditures? In other words, are they taking in more money than they're spending? Because the reverse would mean they're slowly losing. money, and they having higher revenues allows them to invest in infrastructure. So in this case, the answer is yes. We looked at 3 study years, meaning I took the financial audit for the district and compared revenues to expenditures for 3 years. In each of those 3 study years, the commission had revenues that exceeded expenses. Let's see, one thing I want to note is that the Sewerage Commission is a JPA. It's not a special district, it's a joint powers agency. So their boundary is actually made up of the 3 member entities, which is City of Oroville, Thermalito, and Lake Oroville area. So those 3 member entities collect the wastewater and then they send it to the sewage treatment plant operated by the commission. Next slide. This just shows again, same 3 maps. Next slide. This slide shows Cal Water, and the determination that I'm highlighting here is the status and opportunities for shared facilities. And in this case, the top row in the table has 1 key performance indicators, and that's asking, does the organization collaborate with other agencies and with its neighbors? And in this case, Cal Water does collaborate with multiple other agencies. And they sustain a good level of communication with their agencies. They participate in the Sustainable Groundwater Management Agency. They participate in the local watershed management plan, and they maintain physical infrastructure connection with Thermalito Irrigation District and several other examples of collaboration. So Cal Water was formed here in 1927, and they serve 3,400 acres. Next slide. And this is the Thermalito Water and Sewer District. And this determination is accountability for community service needs. Just wanted to highlight the areas shown in yellow is their boundary, and that encompasses 23 square miles. And then their sphere of influence is actually quite larger. The little dot at the top of the map is Lake Concal, and that's where the district gets its water supply from. Next slide. Same 3 maps that we've seen before. And that's essentially the end of my presentation. We've had a team of consultants working on this and creating the GIS maps. And the next slide, please. And thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I'll be in the audience as well.
Questions or comments by the commissioners?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. And excuse my ignorance, but why do we do a municipal service review? And do we do it in every city and municipality in Butte County?
It's a great question. So the municipal service review is essentially a guiding document or an informational document that we will use to inform our future decisions. So Oroville is growing. They have lots of space to grow. Sewer and water are both an integral part in how they will grow. And so as they grow, we'll need to take a look at these districts, and each of these chapters will inform us if those services can be provided to the areas of growth in the city. And yes, we do them for every district and every agency that is under our purview.
And they're done or updated every what, 5, 10 years?
The
What-
law provides that they be done every 5 years or as needed.
Okay. So we do these periodically
As
on the
needed.
other 4 cities in Butte County.
Absolutely. All agencies have a current municipal service review that we refer back to when we make all of our decisions.
Okay. So is Oroville a little different because there's so many different providers of water
It's
in that
definitely
area?
it's a unique situation in that there are a combination of water, sewer providers that all discharge into a treatment plant that is not its own special district. So it is a very unique situation.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say that I've written my fair share of MSRs and reviewed and read a lot of them. And this one is very good, very complete, very thorough. And I believe that the determinations that are found within that document are very accurate.
Yeah, agree.
Any
I have a-
other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question of curiosity, either staff or the consultant. I'm just curious, during the MSR work analysis, did Cal Water Oroville explain why it's considering consolidating with Cal Water Chico?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, I know the answer. but-
Yeah, it's, they submitted an application to the California Public Utilities Commission. And I don't know the outcome of those conversations that they've had with the California Public Utilities Commission, but they post documents on their website and it's a matter of public record, and that's why it was picked up in the MSR. Just, we briefly noted that that was an application that was being considered.
So what you're telling me is this is something that existed and you had to acknowledge it as part of your study. But my question was, did you query Cal Water Oroville as to why they're considering consolidation?
We did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nor did staff, right? It's just a curiosity question. Thank you.
I guess my question is, why doesn't Cal Water look for an intertie with South Feather Power and Water? That seems like the biggest safety thing. If you guys want to answer it, I appreciate it. That seems like the safety valve we'd need.
Yeah. So good morning. My name is Kevin McCusker. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for Cal Water. I've got my colleagues with me, Shannon McGovern, who's our Northern State Special Community Affairs Liaison, as well as Lonnie Lind, who is the District Manager here and has a background in water quality. That's her actual original background. So we do have an intertie with Thermalita. With regard to South Feather, my understanding is that we've been advised that there is some differences in the constituency of the water specific to corrosiveness, and that as currently constituted, that would not be advantageous to the people, our customers on our end of the system. Changes in corrosiveness going from one system to another without being well considered can lead to detrimental outcomes. And trying to address those potentially would not be cost feasible, at least the way we've looked at it for now, but could be more study in the future. But right now, my understanding is that the corrosiveness of the water is different. It's not suitable for moving from one system to the other without additional investment to address that.
Fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions? This time, I'll open do we have electronic comment on this item?
You have in front of you all comments that we've received. You would have received by email the comments from Cal Water, a letter from Thermalita Water and Sewer District, comments provided by South Feather Water and Power Agency. And those are comments that we've received so far. No additional electronic comment.
Okay, at this time, I'll open public comment. I have a card from Chris Handel. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Heindel, Thermalita Water and Sewer District. I provided a comment letter to you all received yesterday afternoon. My main comment would just be that the approval of this document be delayed to sufficiently address all the comments from all the agencies that provided comments, rather than direction to the consultant to make changes and then have it be approved without being distributed again to the agencies that provided those comments.
Thank you.
You bet.
Is there any other public comment on this matter? Bill Bynum. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill. Okay, I just thought I would comment. I was a member of Lower Oroville Water Rates for years. They're now defunct, but just for the record, Cal Water's rates are exorbitant. They, in our opinion, our group, they hold the city of Oroville hostage, and they charge them so much money. Residents can't water their lawns. can't grow gardens. It's utterly ridiculous when when the area that they cover is right next to the lowest water rates in the country. And we sit right on top of a river, and they pull out, when we looked years ago, about $5 million a year out of the economy of Oroville. And I don't know if there's anything LAFCo can do about it, but it is absurd. And in our view, Lower, the city of Oroville should take on eminent domain and get rid of this travesty, because it's killing the residents of Oroville in that small area who've been held hostage for so many years. Just want to get it on the record.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment?
Thank you. Once again, Kevin McCusker, California Water Service. So I just wanted to, you have our comments. I think they're extensive. But I do want to just hit a couple of high points that are kind of summaries for this portion of the record. And I have introduced my colleagues. So thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on the draft MSR. You should have received our written comments on the draft MSR, as well as the draft MSR on the Butte County website was really our first opportunity to review the entire document in its full 700 plus pages, so that we hadn't seen anything before Chapter 8. And we have a number of concerns when looking at it in the full context that are spelled out in some detail. But to summarize a few of them, first, I think, is the simple issue of participation and fairness and even-handedness in the process of assembling the document. It's our understanding that the other water service providers considered in the draft MSR were given the opportunity to participate almost 2 years before we were contacted to be part of this. We are glad to participate, but the draft MSR considers some complex matters and fine detail that require adequate time for review and revision that we do not believe we were granted to the same degree as the other participants. Next is the quality of the document itself. We do not intend this to be a personal attack on the draft author or any LAFCo staff involved in the production of the document. We are not privy to the constraints or the challenges involved in assembling it. This is simply an assessment of the draft MSR itself as presented for action here and whether it passes professional muster. The draft MSR is rife with incorrect information as well as incorrect analysis. For example, the introductory chapter, as it pertains to Cal Water, includes a section about the wrong water utility, California American Water, a water utility that is wholly distinct from California Water Service and that does not operate in Oroville or anywhere in Butte County that we're aware of. The draft MSR presents information from a Cal American filing with the California Public Utilities Commission and determines that it could affect the cost of water service in Oroville. Now, errors happen. We understand that. We get that. But one this glaring and fundamental in the very opening of the chapter calls into question the quality of the entire document. The section about Cal Water's urban management plan, water management plan, is an example of incorrect analysis and conclusions drawn from correct information. The draft MSR asserts that Cal Water's urban water management plan does not factor for the effects of climate change into its water demand and supply projections when the document in question explicitly does account for it. The draft MSR further incorrectly asserts that Cal Water's urban water management plan does not account for population. And the draft MSR incorrectly concludes that our urban water management plan projects water demand under drought conditions would exceed projected water supply in 2045. These assertions, analyses, and conclusions are directly contradicted by Cal Water's actual urban water management plan, which was accepted and deemed complete by the Department of Water Resources. Another example are the multiple instances in which the draft MSR asserts there is limited information available about Cal Water. The draft MSR does not indicate any information that should be available but is not. The draft MSR does not indicate what information is available for the other water service providers considered, but that is not available for Cal Water. The abundance of information within the draft MSR itself contradicts the assertion that limited information is available. And also, the draft MSR uses incorrect information regarding cost of service and affordability. Possibly the out-of-date rate information or incorrect assumptions about median household consumption contribute to this error, but it leads to incorrect conclusions about affordability. Further, the draft MSR does not adequately account for Cal Water's customer assistance program, which needs to be factored into any analysis of affordability. And I would like to touch on the issue of fairness and even-handedness within the document itself. Again, going back to the urban water management plan, the draft MSR, as mentioned, concludes erroneously that our plan does not account for climate change. It does not make any similar criticisms or conclusions of the other water service providers considered, despite the fact that neither appear to address climate change in their urban water management plans, beyond saying that climate change can result in hotter temperatures, more frequent periods of drought, and higher demand. Both of the urban water management plans of the other water service providers considered say that the issue is too big for them. Yet there is no similar conclusion that they have not accounted for climate change in their urban water management plans. The only water service provider singled out for this conclusion is the only one of the three that has actually engaged in genuine research and planning related to climate change. Further, there seems to be some question as to whether the other water service providers considered have met their urban water management plans filing requirements and whether their urban water management plans were deemed acceptable by the Department of Water Resources. Yet Cal Water is the only one of the three singled out for criticism. The only water service provider of the three that meets the legal and regulatory requirements of the plan process. There are more points of concern and the details are in the written comments we provided. I won't try to get down into the weeds. Cal Water recommends that the commission does not take action on the draft MSR as presented and that another period of 6 months be approved to address the errors within and the issues and concerns about the draft MSR. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak under public comment? Close public comment. Wow.
I want to add to that all comments provided by these agencies will be included as a chapter in this document. So as we consider actions or proposals in the future and refer back to this document, those comments would be included in the document for consideration. Today, no proposals are in front of you, as Bill mentioned at the opening of this meeting. Typically, an MSR would come in conjunction with a sphere of influence update or some other action to be taken by the commission. This is simply an MSR being accepted by this commission with any proposed changes that you'd like to see and inclusion of these comments as an additional chapter. So in the future, as we consider, say, a sphere of influence for any of these districts, we would take a look and consider comments provided by them.
Okay.
Well, I've got some concerns. We have two of the water providers here that don't feel that this report is adequate and then does not address all the issues. It would be my motion, if accepted, or I would move that we do extend extend the term for another 6 months to collaborate with these water districts and come up back with a more accurate report. That would be my motion.
Well, let's not make a motion yet. We need some more dialogue.
Okay.
I need to ask staff this question.
Well, let me point of order. Was there a second to the motion? The motion dies for lack of second. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff, have the services provided by the consultant, are they now ended?
The service
LAFCo.
is to the adoption of the document. We have a contract with the consultant that ends in August.
Okay, so they're still on board contractually, right?
Yeah.
My question is this, if for some reason this commission opts to continue the hearing, let's say, and I don't know if 6 months is necessary, quite frankly, to answer some of the issues raised today, but say we continue the hearing for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, with direction to staff and the consultant to better prepare those issues relative to the MSR overall and bring the whole thing back for our consideration. Is that doable, or is that going to be extensive time and cost for staff?
We do.
So we have another deadline that is very relevant to this process. This was a grant funded study. And the grant was through the state of California, but processed through Butte County Department of Development Services because we needed that conduit to do so. We have a drop dead deadline to provide them a approved document. And without so, the state will not reimburse a single dime of the money that we've already put out for the contract. And this is $100,000 contract, which I know to some agencies, that's small potatoes, but for us, that's a huge chunk of our budget. So we very much want to conclude this. We will make the changes necessary that are factually wrong in the document and finish it. But with respect to bringing this back, without a July meeting on your schedule, I don't think an August meeting would suffice to do this. If you're deeply concerned about that section, I won't speak for Thermalito Water and Sewer, but I don't think they're opposed to the document in any way. I think they have some very good suggestions, but I think they've been cooperative throughout the process and want to see this concluded. So I don't know if they're in the same category would want to be put in the same category as Cal Water. As for Cal Water's comments, they are extensive. It's very disappointing that we got those literally yesterday when they've had the opportunity to provide such comments for months. That's disappointing, but that's what it is. And we accept those comments as they are. If you think those comments are demonstrable to this process, there are ways to conclude this. And one, as Shannon indicated, we can put their comments in there and the public can read and can deduce from what those comments, what they wish. That would allow us to move forward. A second option would allow us to move forward today by taking the Cal Water chapter out. We wouldn't approve it. Follow me on this. If this is a problem for you, this would not be my first recommendation, but if it's a problem, we could take that chapter out. We can work with Cal Water and bring it back as an appendix for a separate review that would be then attached to the MSR, which would allow us to stay on our deadline in terms of getting our grant funding approved. So in a sense, you can accept it today and those comments can be included, and the general public and anybody else who wants to can read those comments and come to their own conclusions as to whether they're accurate. Our consultant has looked at this information and she's very confident in what she's produced, and she has a track record of decades of work doing this and providing very, very thorough documents. So I don't doubt her information collection, and she cites most of it. Cal-Am was a very glaring error. We apologize for that. It happens. By no means is that should be construed as being the rest of the document is somehow compromised because we made one single error in one single chapter. I think that's ludicrous from my perspective, and we will make that change. But if you want to move forward today, we can. I think what really troubles me about the Cal Water comments is that we have no regulatory authority over Cal Water. What we did was we think the public and our public agencies a service by putting Cal Water in as an agency to be reviewed in comparison. By no way are we ever accepting or promoting or encouraging that LAFCo is going to take any action to do anything with Cal Water. A, we cannot do it, and B, the process to do it in a legal fashion is just not feasible right now. So any connection between this MSR and their demise is completely false in my mind. That's just a boogeyman put out there. We went through this process in 2018 with the water study, and we came up with some conclusions, and that did not generate sufficient interest locally for it to occur. It would be a disservice if LAFCo did not evaluate Cal Water. And I think we evaluated them in a fair way. I agree. I accept that while we all use the same facts, they came to a different conclusion with those facts. We all spin facts in a way that we feel is best for our agency. LAFCo, I think in this document, put out the facts that we think are accurate and supportable, and we characterize them in a way that we believe that the public can understand. If you feel that's not sufficient, I am happy to do something different. But my only real options today are we approve and we add their comments in for public transparency, or we approve this today and we take that chapter out and we bring it back as a future appendix to the document. And we then spend some time with Cal Water to try to work through these issues. I'll tell you right now, it's not my expectation as much as I will try. I don't think we're going to get to an agreement on these issues. We've been through this with Cal Water once before, and we did not come to conclusion on issues then. I don't believe we're going to come to conclusion on these issues again. These are fundamental differences of opinion between what the local constituency of water users thinks and what Cal Water thinks. And that's not our job to get in the middle of that. The PUC's job is to do that. Our job is simply put out factual information to provide comparisons, and I think we've done that. So if you're satisfied with that today, we move forward. We put this in the document as an appendix or as their letters as an appendix to with the comments, and the public can read them. And Cal Water can defend it or promote it or encourage it any way they want. They can continue to attack us if they want. But the reality is we're going to continue to work with our public water agencies to improve service, both water and sewage availability and cost at the lowest rate and the most effective way we can. And if that means some people have to hear some things that are uncomfortable about potential reasons we might want to look at some other issues of sharing facilities, so be it. It's in the public's best interest that we do this. We're not here to do this for the agencies. We're not here to do it for any one individual company. We're here to do it for the public and for you to make future decisions on it. And I think that document thoroughly covers every possible contingency that could have come up. And I will say is, as Mr. Betts pointed out, I had no idea that Qatari, when we brought her into this, was going to produce War and Peace for us. But we got a tremendously fact-filled document that I think for those of you who've been in and out in the Cal LAFCo world, look around the state, it's going to be one of the better documents that has been prepared. So with that, you tell me what you want to do and I'll tell you how I can get there.
Here's where I'm at. I mean, you know, I've lived in this community my entire life, and I have a LAFCO hat and I have a county supervisor's hat, and I grew up pretty rough, man. And I know when somebody overreacts to stuff, it's because they're guilty. And I think Cal Water is guilty of charging the highest water rates in this part of the state. And they're going to make comments. They're going to defend their position. We're not in a position to undo that. So I don't think we need to change a thing. They can put in all the comments they want. It'll all be legally. They got lawyers. They can look at it. If we did a good report, which I think we did, because we're not here to make Cal Water or their stockholders or their employees or anybody feel good. We're here to help the public. And that goes with all the water districts and all the sewer districts. This is a snapshot in time of what's going on right now. And our perception may be a little bit different than yours. And I'm not hateful to anybody. I understand people make money doing this. That's fine. But I do not support pulling anything out of this report under like political pressure. I do not. I think we had to have the guts enough to pass it as it is and let the pieces fall where they fall.
I think we all agree it needs, if there's factual things that are wrong, but not opinion stuff. I mean, we can't get into the opinion stuff, but the fact, if there's factual things that need to be wrong, let's get them changed. But this is just a document for us to use for future decisions. This isn't something that we're hanging over somebody or beating someone up with. So I don't know, as a novelist in this area, I am lost as to why it's such a big deal.
And I think the inclusion of the comments that we've received in the document that clearly showed to any reader that the concerns that Cal Water and the other agencies had with regards to their agency.
Yeah, my concern in this is that I don't care whose fault it is, but there was not good communication between Cal Water and the
That's an
consultant.
opinion by Cal Water.
Okay,
so-
just hold on. Let me just finish.
Well, you're new to the game and you're kind of upsetting me a little bit, but go ahead.
I think Cal Water provides a very valuable service to Oroville and to this area. I'm not going to comment on their prices, what they charge. But I am concerned. I am concerned that there wasn't more communication. And with their list of concerns, that bothers me. But
You're
anyway.
entitled to your opinion. I
Okay,
apologize.
thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that LAFCO adopt option 1 as recommended by staff. Option 1 includes the incorporation of all comments received in addition to the resolution. So that'll direct staff to finalize the MSR in that manner.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
No,
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGrehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. We'll move on to the next item. It's 3.3 amendment to current staff charge out rates, including continuation of the application of annual cost escalator based on the employment cost index, ECI.
Phil. We see these every single year. We come back, we have adopted a charge out rate. The document's fairly short and very informative, but the bottom line is the ECI increase for this year is 4.7%. We simply look at our current charge out rate from the previous year, which was 178 times 4.7%, makes our new adjusted rate $186 an hour. This is just a formality that we have to do to set this rate. It's not, you're not setting the study. You're just looking at the ECI adjustment for a cost index, which we do every year in June and takes effect July 1st. So we're just looking for your approval of that increase.
Any questions or comments by the board? I think I'm still on the last item. Sorry, Todd, man. Any questions or comments by the commissioners here? Any electronic comment on this item? Anyone want to publicly comment on this item? It's less than a lawyer, Harriman. You could have said that for us, helped us out. All right, we'll close public.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, call the roll.
Chair Bolin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
LAFCo Board of Directors nomination, commission will consider the nomination of Bill Connolly, the Board of Directors, California Association of Local Agency Formation Commission for a 2-year term beginning in October 2023. Any public comment on this? Uh-oh.
You called for
I don't know.
Careful what you ask for.
I think we're worthy adversaries and friends on occasion, so.
Nomination and recommend it highly to the commission. I look forward to seeing Supervisor Connolly and Mr. Lucas continue to do a great job that you do before LAFCo. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I think my pacemaker just stopped.
I think I'm sending him a Christmas card now. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment beyond that? I'll close public comment. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bolin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
With pleasure. Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for your confidence. Okay, so the acceptance of the protest proceedings results call for election and consideration and partial analysis for the ballot for the Tuscan Water District. And I remind everyone, this is not about the formation, it's an analysis of the ballot that occurred. That's what we're on today, the analysis of the ballot. I'll turn it over to staff.
As commissioners, this has been a bit of a saga, and I apologize for as long as it has taken, but this is a lot of new ground we've covered, and we have all learned something in the process. But yes, you're absolutely right. Commissioner Connolly, this morning is really, these are largely ministerial actions that the commission is going to take. You approved the Tuscan Water District formation at your March meeting this year, subject to a protest proceeding. That protest proceedings took place between April 7th and May 5th, concluding on a May 5th public meeting. The official public notice was published in the Enterprise Record on April 27th. And as you can see from the attachment to our document, to your staff report. Excuse me. It's attachment. My fingers are not working. There we go. Attachment C. This is the trouble with double-sided papers. So you can look at the results of the protest proceedings. So we did receive 204 total protests. Of those, 182 were determined to be valid. Validity in this case was determined, and they were rejected based on failure to either sign the correct name or identify the property or date the form. These are fundamental 3 components that just have to be on that form, or they are simply not valid in any way. So those ballots were rejected. That's why the items went from 204 down to 182. That was a total of 5.8% of the total number of protests. You can look down the column and see that for the one that matters for us, which is total assessed land value, that this area had $632 million and some very big change. And the total value of the ALV of the protests was approximately 31 million, or about 4.8% of the total. It would have required 50 plus 1% in order for this to be terminated. So you can see it didn't come remotely close to that. But because this is in a formation of a California water district, rather than what we would normally do, and most of you expect to see, is that doesn't even target the level that we need to get to an election. So had this been a sort of a project that did not involve the formation of a new agency, this would have failed in protest because it would not have achieved 25%. There would have been no vote or election required. It just would have been automatically approved. This is a unique situation, but I want to give you the comparison that the amount of protests we received ordinarily would be inconsequential to any other project, but we're moving forward nonetheless. So that's the outcome of the protest proceedings themselves. The next step in the process is that since we have to call an election, it is for you, the commission, to ask the Board of Supervisors to call the election. It is then the Board of Supervisors' position to direct the elections official to conduct the election. So what we're going, the second part of today's agenda here is calling for the election. And so what you can see is we have a condition that required us to do so. It cites the terms and that we are required to provide. And if you look at your attachment D, it's resolution 26. This is the actual adopting resolution that will go to the Board of Supervisors that will tell them what to do about this election. It includes all of the fundamental points in the law and the direction for how and when they are to be done. So that's the second part of this. All you're really doing here is saying, we took a protest proceeding, it failed. Our next responsibility is to pass it on to the Board of Supervisors. That's what you are doing today with this resolution. First time around, we did it via a letter to the board. Some of you might recall that was not comfortable to some folks. So this time around, we opted to just do a formal resolution rather than a letter. There will be a cover letter, mind you, but it's going to go to the board as a formal resolution of the commission, which should remove anybody's doubt that this was the commission's action and not me doing something rogue. The third part of this process is for us, and it's required that we provide, and the code specifically says the executive officer of LAFCo shall provide an impartial analysis of 500 words or less back to the county elections official that would be included in a ballot pamphlet that would go out. So I've also provided an impartial analysis to you in your packet as attachment E. And the law requires you to look at it and determine whether or not there are any changes to it that you would like to see. So having said that, there's no action to take on the protest results. You're just receiving that. There is an action to take on the call for election, which is the resolution number 26. And the only action you have to take on the impartial analysis is, do you agree with it and say, fine, send it on, or if there are any changes to it that you would like. Mind you, with the impartial analysis, this was an extraordinarily large project. I have 500 words to say the most critical things I can say about the process in terms of facts. So I recognize that there are probably a lot of editorial thoughts and comments that could go in. Ms. Alma perhaps suggested that I include the Aqua Alliance letter as a part of the impartial analysis in some way. Well, that's clearly an opinion of a group, and it's not really appropriate to put in the impartial analysis. I appreciate that perspective, but they will have plenty of time during the election process to share their perspective on the goods or bads of the district. The impartial analysis was my best effort to call out facts that made the most sense to someone voting, what they would want to know. And that's what I've done. And it was almost identical to the one you approved a year ago, with a few obviously noticeable changes in dates and numbers. So that's what's in front of you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a question, probably for legal counsel. How old are these laws and how in the hell do we get them fixed?
That's a good question. And I don't know exactly how old the specific provisions are that we're working with. I do think, and Steve mentioned this doesn't happen that frequently, correct? Like the creation of this new district, all this protest process and everything. So yeah, this, as we've gone through this, I've had some similar thoughts about how this could be streamlined. And that's a legislative fix.
Good, you gave me my excuse. All California legislators' faults. All
I
right.
think it's something that LAFCo should take up. And as you, as the chairman, I think that would be, don't you guys agree with that?
I second that.
Okay, thank you.
It's not our purview. Sorry.
And
We don't do
Mr.
legislation.
And-
Any other questions or comments by Commissioner?
Mr. Lucas, did council, I'm assuming council looked through
Impartial analysis. Yeah.
through this and,
Our legal counsel?
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
As it was also shared with county council.
Is the voter office, do they need to look at it beforehand?
No, in fact, they should not be looking at it beforehand. That's the impartial part of the.
Any questions or comments down here? Was there electronic public comment on this matter? Mr. Harriman? I assume. Mr. Harriman, come on up. You're already up. There you go.
That's Emily Alma.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get him. Yeah, we got him. Good morning again.
Kind, sir.
Now it is.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chairman Connolly, members of the commission, Richard Harriman. I'm a Chico resident, property owner, and have followed this process. I'm going to be changing what my comments were going to be based on what staff has presented. I would respectfully differ with one conclusion that council has made, and that is that although this is a ministerial process as to step one, the ballot itself was incorrect on its face in that had the wrong year for the ballot. All of the ballots were facially defective. Now, whether that is ministerial or not, I believe that it is a procedural error that you should not approve by moving forward on this. So that's the objection as to the procedural issue on the form of the ballot that was defective ab initio, and all ballots were defective. So I think you should not approve that. On the second thing is that I think given the chairman's comments and the long extended discussion we've had about this particular project, we're probably going to have to get into the U.S. Supreme Court decision on Salyer Land Company, because as I've argued before, I believe that it is unconstitutional to proceed with this particular project under these circumstances, given the alternative, which would be a California irrigation district, much like Modesto, Merced, Fresno, all of the older water districts. And that really is a constitutional issue that is going to come up. Your council may rule that it is inapplicable here, but I want to make it clear that the distinction in that Salyer case really shows that this is the wrong kind of water district to use with this type of situation. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Are there any questions?
I'll ask staff later, okay?
Thank
I'll
you.
get a follow-up for you. Thank
Thank
you. Emily Alma? Good morning.
He was not in the Supreme Court's killing of the Clean Water Act.
I'm not smiling back because I am feeling very upset about this masquerade of impartiality. The fact that the impartial analysis did not mention any concern about the proceedings of the of how the protest proceedings went flies in the face of impartiality. Within 500 words, I would have helped you out to find a way to fit in the concerns expressed by Aqua Alliance, which is a highly respected and very successfully litigating nonprofit, local nonprofit. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if their claims were correct or not. But what I also feel as a property owner, landowner within the Tuscan Water District, we are dependent on 2 shallow wells. And one of the concerns, I know the substance of the project isn't important, but it's important to me to know that every effort was made to reach the people who were legally allowed to express their concerns in this protest election, because we depend on 2 shallow wells. And one of the big concerns that is expressed about the Tuscan Water District is that it gives senior water rights holders great power over our water. That's not expressly explained to the many petitioners who believe that this is their opportunity to make sure that their own water source is reliable. That's why most of the petitioners, is my sense, that most of the petitioners have signed on to this because they think this is the way they can continue to irrigate their farms. And I appreciate their concerns because I have those concerns. We depend on shallow wells, and the way this is set up is very likely to draw down on the shallow wells to the point where not only our shallow wells may go dry, which already has been experienced by many, many people who depend on the Tuscan aquifer, but also our urban, our oak woodlands, which the roots of the oak trees, that the valley oaks, the amazing valley oak trees, they depend on the same height as we do for our wells. And we could lose our oak woodland forest, our valley oak woodland forest, if the water is drawn down enough to, which it can be according to the way this is set up. So I'm very concerned about the impartiality. I think that every effort should have been made, including, I meant to bring with me the little envelope that we received with our quotes courtesy mailing. Apparently there was only law required, only according to Mr. Lucas, the law required only to publish it one time in the enterprise record, and that would have been enough to satisfy the legal requirement. Whether or not that is true, if the concern is to contact the people who care about this to get their honest response, then an effort should be made. That envelope, it came, I have a land partner who picks up the mail, the Riparian mail, and it was in his stack of stuff to get around to sometime, because it just said Riparian LLC and the address, and it came from LAFCo, and I'll check that out when I get around to it. Well, we all know about those get around to it, don't we? And I was watching for it, so I asked him, and the same thing happened last year. Last year, we didn't find out about it till it was almost too late to get our vote in, because he had it in his stack of around to it. And I don't blame him, because he's a busy man. Those envelopes, if you care about getting those votes in, those envelopes should say time sensitive, important election deadline on the envelope, maybe in red, to make sure that people see it. And then they get to choose whether or not to protest. But I have no idea how many envelopes got lost in the shuffle. And I care a lot about this, and I'm involved with it, so I know. But the second thing is that I'm very concerned about is that apparently this was discussed at your May 4th meeting, although it was not agendized. And I read through 3 times the transcript. I wasn't ready to go through the whole video to see, and I couldn't find any mention of it. But according to Mr. Lucas, the Aqua Alliance letter was discussed, and also the LAFCo attorney's rebuttal to the comments that were made. And why was not, I looked carefully on that agenda and didn't see any listing of this discussion. My understanding, if it was discussed, because I only heard it from Mr. Lucas I didn't see it on the agenda or reading through the transcript. But isn't it public law, public meeting law that topics to be discussed should be agendized? I'm not a lawyer. All I know is that I would have been at that meeting if I had known it was going to be discussed. And so I think that LAFCo is once again botching this process. And if you send it on to the Board of Supervisors, it's rubber stamping again, and the Board of Supervisors will rubber stamp it again. And a lot of people who have deep concerns for their water will be disenfranchised.
Thank you. Any other public comment? We'll close public comment. There's 2 questions by Mr. Harriman. One was concerning a date and one constitutionality.
I will start to address both, and then Ms. Birch can tell me where I'm wrong. First item, constitutionality issue, is the Saylor case that he referred to at the Supreme Court, where Supreme Court found landowner voter districts to be legitimate tools of the government to use. Plain and simple. They weren't found to be unconstitutional because they were not registered voter districts. And obviously he thinks different about that, but that's the law of the land as it stands today. So that's the first issue. Second issue deals with the notice. Just to be very clear, we are required by law to provide a published notice, provide notice on this for the protest proceeding. The law allows any agency, when those notices exceed 1,000, to publish that notice in the newspaper rather than send out individual notices to every single person over 1,000. This clearly was over 1,000. We prepared a legally satisfactory public notice, sent it to the newspaper. It was published on the day it was supposed to be published on, which is in your report. And it ran for that day, as all that required is by law. We also sent out individual notices. And when I say notices, it's a cover letter and a sample ballot that they could use. I don't even want to use it a ballot. Strike that word. It's a form that we provide. That form is not a legal form that's in the Cortese-Knox law. It's a form that we created just for convenience of folks being able to complete one rather than having to just write it on a postcard. And then it's easier to tabulate on our end when it comes in a consistent fashion. So we provide those forms. That form came with a cover letter that explained how you are to fill it out and who's eligible and all the instructions. The cover letter and the form provided was a courtesy. We were not required by law in any way, shape, or form to provide either one of those things. But we do because we think it's helpful to the public to have those forms in their hand when they make a consideration. So that's how that went down. On that form, there was an error indicating a protest date that was literally 1 year prior because it was a carryover mistake, a clerical error on our part by using the same form without changing the number, the date. We immediately determined this the day that they went out, and we subsequently sent out postcards with the corrected information that literally went out on the Friday after the Thursday that it became public notice. I consulted with legal counsel on this, and that was the decision to best solve the problem, was to send out a notice of correction. It did not in any way, shape, or form stop somebody from filling out the form or sending it in. We got plenty of them and they were dated correctly. Some even circled that number, but still formed in the form. But the postcard clearly indicated what the issue was and told them to disregard that date and use this date. That's the only place that date showed up, was on that one courtesy form. So this has been legally noticed. People got forms back. We got 200 and some back, which tells you that they were out there and they were noticed. And so to me, there's not an issue related to protest inconsistencies at all.
Okay, what about the letter from
Aqua Alliance.
Aqua Alliance? Yeah.
At our meeting on
Almost
May
said that.
4th,
Sorry.
it was the executive officer's report section, which if you look on your agenda today, you'll see under item 6.2 also says correspondence, if any. You may recall that I offered you that letter as early as I could, which was that meeting. And I said, we received the following correspondence from Aqua Alliance. I think at that particular point, there was a question about whether or not it was a legitimate comment. And at that time, a commissioner had asked our counsel if the letter caused her concerns, and you had received a second letter from another attorney representing the Tuscan proponents, who basically also said that the things in the letter were not accurate or legally concerning. Our counsel at the time, which was not Marcia sitting here, it was Scott at the time, but it was indicated that he was in agreement with the other counsel's assessment, and that was it. It was not agendized because it was not agendized for any action. It was simply just correspondence that was being passed on to the commission at the earliest possible moment, which would have been that meeting.
And then I think the last question was, can we put big red things on envelopes when we mail out saying, hey, important vote, or any notification outside of
We
an
could certainly
envelope?
do just about anything.
I mean,
Not to be flippant, but
I think it's a legitimate suggestion. If we adopted it, then there could never be an argument. We didn't try. So if it's legal, I don't see, and we want to spend a little extra money, I don't see anything wrong with it.
as my daughter told me, Mr. Connolly, when she got a letter from Nielsen Company this week, and it said they want her to rate TV shows, but you know what got her to open the envelope? It said on the outside, money included inside envelope. And there's a fresh dollar bill inside the envelope. I don't mean to be flippant, but the reality is we all
I know,
receive
I
mail. And if you don't open your mail, then you're not going to know what's in there. And if you just throw away mail on a casual basis, that to me is on you. You have a civic responsibility to participate, and we provided that. But yes, we can come up with a better envelope that might draw people's attention. There will not be dollars inside.
A pink envelope.
Okay. All right, so if there's no further discussion by this commission, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain, I'm sorry, I will motion that we accept the results and also resolution 26202223
And the draft
And-
impartial analysis.
and the draft and partial analysis, yes.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor, call the roll. Try to speed these things up, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Boland,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kimmelshoe,
Yes.
Chair Connolly,
Aye.
Commissioner McGreehan,
Aye.
Commissioner Betts.
aye.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment. Anyone from the public like to speak on something on your mind that's not agendized? We cannot take action this time, but we're more than willing to listen to you for 3 minutes. Close public comment. 2 minutes? No, close. All right, reports and communication, executive officers report.
As you know, we are still currently conducting an election to replace our special district member. We're getting closer. We have 16 ballots in of the 20 necessary to move forward. Hopefully this extension will yield us 4 more. If you are a district who has not provided your ballot, or you know any other districts, please encourage them to do so. We'd appreciate that.
That means enterprise and non-enterprise districts. can vote?
Everybody gets to
Yeah.
vote, correct?
And there's a slight misunderstanding among some staff members on sub districts. They don't realize that. So
All right, well, we'll try to be more clear if I'll review those
thank you.
instructions, but I'll check into that. So anyhow, hopefully we'll get a quorum of ballots, and then I will report back to you with a new member.
So can we follow up on that? I think his comments were very relevant. Could you just make a quick phone call to each special district, say, yeah, you're allowed to vote, please do?
We haven't heard back from those districts, obviously, but I'm more than happy to do so.
Yes, sir.
Special district representative on. LAFCo.
Director.
Yes. All right, moving on.
Let the record show some guy yelled out from the audience. We don't know who he is. It's okay. No.
Next item up under administration is the issue related to our contractual services contract with the county. I'm not going to get into the details because we've already had kind of a good discussion about it previously. The good news is we have met with county staff since our last meeting. We did have an opportunity to explore Paylocity as a firm to utilize for payroll services. We do believe that it will be ultimately at a big cost savings to the commission to do so. It won't happen immediately in terms of the cost savings, but it will happen probably within the first year. There's going to be some training time and whatnot that we will lose in resources for training. But once we get good with the program, I think that ultimately we will see a large reduction in our costs for payroll services. So I want to thank the county as much as they've pushed this on us in a way that I didn't necessarily think was appropriate. They have really tried hard in this last month to reach out and cooperatively work with us. BCAG is doing the same exact process, so we're following them by a couple months. I'll be honest with you, the county would like to see me have this all concluded in a contract signed by you by the end of June, the fiscal year, so they can start payroll without us on July 1st. I can see no conceivable way that I can get a contract for all of the Paylocity issues back to you with all the information you will want to need to know to make that decision. We will not have a July meeting. The best I could possibly do is August. I did confer with the chair, Mr. Connolly. He agreed that perhaps September would be an appropriate month for us to do that so that we don't have the summer to compromise our functions. What I want to leave you with, though, is that progress is being made. So I appreciate both Mr. Kimmelshue and Mr. Connolly's working with the board supervisors and the CAO to encourage him to work with us. But I think we're to a point now where we're past the acrimony over why and how they did it. And we're working towards the solution. And ultimately, I think the solution will be a cost savings for LAFCo, or otherwise I would have continued to push the county to do otherwise. But so it's a positive update. My only thing I want to warn you is at least the two supervisor members, you might hear from your staff, we've got to get this done. I cannot honestly see a way that we can get the contract and everything concluded to you by August, given summer vacations, potential commissioners not even be able to come to the August meeting. I would prefer to tell the county that September is our target for this to happen. And I hope that's something that our commissioners can continue to support. So I'll fill you in. If you have any questions now, I'll try to answer them, but we're working the problem, and I think we'll get to a solution that doesn't result in a lot of finger pointing. The last item on this for the administrators, it's talking about what we do as a service. It's specific to Butte Water District and to the city of Gridley, but I want to preface this with a larger comment. Is this commission, is for the 30 years that I've been doing this with you, has always inspired its staff to go out and solve problems, get in the middle of things, try to see if you can help in any way to solve problems. And that consistently has happened throughout the years. And this is just another one of these great examples where we had a special district, in this case, Butte Water District, come to us with some concerns about a project in the city of Gridley. It's not an annexation, so we don't have any direct influence over the outcome of that particular project, but it dealt with the undergrounding of ditches, which we will eventually also have to deal with at LAFCo when we look at annexations in the future that are also going to include facilities of these water districts. You can't go pretty much anywhere around Gridley and Biggs and not cross a canal. So anywhere you grow, you're going to have this issue. To me, and to the commission's past instructions, was the undergrounding of canals is hugely important as a public health and safety issue. And for those poor folks in Gridley who have to deal with this every now and again in a year, and a small child falls in a canal, that's just something no community should have to deal with. And it should never be at the expense of somebody not being forced to underground a canal because it wasn't profitable enough for them to do it. I realize that's an editorial statement on my part, and that does not affect my thinking about our procedure, but that is very much a real component to this process. So anyhow, having said that, Shannon and I have participated, helped Butte Water District. We've met with the city of Gridley. We've talked with Bruce on numerous occasions. We're trying to help a problem. I don't want anybody up here, if you hear anything back, that we're trying to tell Gridley what to do, as much as we're trying to solve future problems that we are going to face with special districts. I don't know if Bruce, if you want to elaborate anymore, you're welcome to. You don't have to. I just wanted to let the commission know we're doing it.
Your effort to help the situation is definitely true. So that's the only comment that I have at this point.
That's fine. I just wanted you all to know we're engaged in that conversation, and I know Mr. Kimmershul gets a lot of comments on it too. But we're all working towards a solution that is Gridley can grow, continue to provide housing that we very much need, but at the same time protect these agricultural interests and facilities that have been around for 150 years. So that's really where we're at. Project notes. I'm not going to go into any one of these individual projects because there's really nothing new on any of them that's worthy to share with you. Legislation again is the same things we've been talking about. They're still being worked on between sphere amendment or 156, 133 service extension issues and dealing with indemnification of projects. So Mr. Connolly and I continue to advocate on our behalf at LAFCo and also for LAFCo statewide. And that is all I have for you. If there's any questions for me of any of that or anything new.
The only thing I'd like to say is we're trying to rebrand LAFCO, and he asked me what I thought about the acronym. I said, sounds like we work for clowns. So
I
we
do not
really
tell
are
people
trying to
that's what I work
rebrand.
That is true.
Just laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Laugh.
Yeah, if you don't know anything about government, what would you think, you know?
Yeah, no, I. get it.
Bozo, what, you know?
It's kind of funny.
So we're trying to rebrand it. If you have any original ideas for even how to rebrand LAFCO or how to get the legislature to, they either have to strengthen us or we have to realize they're always going to pull the rug out from under us, because right now the legislators tend to say they want to, as a political favor, I'll be blunt, want to provide water service to pick on a casino or something like that. They'll just go float something at a legislative level and go right around us without our impartial analysis that's necessary to prevent, what do we want? Not irrational growth. We want to protect ag land. We want to protect that district, make sure it's profitable and do all this. And somehow at the state level, our struggle is that you created us to be rational and to provide oversight and at least snapshots in time of what's going on, and yet you continually go around us. So rebranding us to a different name, I'm open to any ideas. I think we need to do it and take it very seriously. That was all I gotta say about it. And you're laughing too much. You must be bozo. Yeah, narco's already taken. So that's it for me. Anybody else got anything?
Mr. Chair, if it's,
appropriate.
thank you. On the agenda earlier, we were honored to vote and nominate you again for LAFCO representation, Cal LAFCO, excuse me. But I am kind of curious, in the staff report, it talks about, I guess we're members of the northern part of the state. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, quickly, we really had a great thing going at LAFCO, meaning that every county had representation. And so the rural counties would swing into a power, which give our perception of what's going on. Then the more urban counties and then the suburban counties, we'd kind of swing in and out. One day, the more wealthy, more populous county said, we're taking our marbles and go home if you don't district us up. So we came up with 6 districts or 5, 4, like I could hear. So in the 4 districts, then we rotate positions, and I can understand their perception, but it really, again, kind of detunes that vibration, that effect we bring as a rural counties. When we had the gross power, they had to listen to us. You know what I mean? This is where your water comes from. This is the impacts of what you're doing. This is all electric cars and how quick you're doing it. Whatever it was, any special district, whatever it was, we had that that representation, let's put it that way. And so as it went to districts, we just tacked and I got back in the chairs and here we are. But yeah, that's why we have it. And it's still a problem. We have one county that refuses to play ball with us right now, but they're not worth mentioning.
Well, I did notice that we're part of the northern section.
Yeah, we are. We
And
definitely are.
there's another opening for the north represent, besides a county representative, a LAFCO, but a special district representative. Do
Yes.
any of our northern section LAFCOs, have they nominated anybody for that position?
There was one person.
Oh, wow.
But it is, when you join state LAFCO, you are fighting for legislation that just makes sense. And you're trying to educate the legislature on a continuous basis what we were created to do. It is important. I think even today, I'll speak today, we had a situation, we have all these sewer districts and water districts. We're not empowered enough to say, can we take that to the public? Our MSRs make sense, that maybe consolidation makes sense, or maybe a separation of a district. I'm just saying, we do not have that power. And it seems like until we can rebrand ourselves, until we're accepted, and the reality is of the impact we could have towards rational growth and serving the people, more importantly, than serving government in general, as we serve the people for what's best for their services, we're not going to have that power. I think that's why the rebranding is important, and especially if you're interested in being on there, throw your name in there.
Is it, are you interested?
Possibly, but
Al?
I think your deadline's August, so September is still.
I mean, it's,
I know.
well, I just look at, everybody's really way smarter than me. I just run a good meeting, give good speeches. So I get along with everybody pretty good. Yeah, works good for me.
It's a 2-year commitment, correct? And if you want to talk more about it, I'm happy to chat through it with you. And we can make it happen.
It's true too that the special districts and the League of Cities sometimes get in conflict with us when they're the greatest tool if used properly. I think that's a very kind of blanket statement, but it's mostly true. And we have a situation right now, so I'll speak briefly of, we cannot indemnify ourselves because of an interpretation of a law. Special districts, counties, cities, all can indemnify their staff and their agency. And here's the crazy thing. If we lose a suit, it passes on to each and everybody. The special districts are going to get hit, the city's going to get hit, the counties are going to get hit. So for us not to be able to indemnify, that's a lift we got right now, and we'd love to have you on board and give us a hand.
It's not about me.
It's about the public. It's really fun, really, in a way.
Okay.
Enough speeches. All right, class dismissed. We'll see you next time. Yes, sir.
For electronic.
Well, this is public comment, and we
Great,
can't
thank you.
take action on it.
You want to go first?
No, I want to go.
Okay. Richard Harris.
He's my bodyguard. Be careful.
I'll be
I don't
much
wanna
more
talk.
polite, sir. I had a question through the chair to Steve. What's the status on the MSR self-regulation on that? Has that been decided yet? Remember the language that says as needed on an update on the MSRs? Yeah, because I think you had a discussion
Yeah,
about
we're
that
working on
before.
that one too.
But is there any legislation in the hopper?
No.
It's hard to get somebody. Frankly, we're up north. We're a very small minority in the legislature. We need to get across the aisle and get support, but it does need to be fixed.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing.
You're not going to use that against us now, are you, Mr. Herron?
Chairman, I just attended the Central Valley Flood Protection Board meeting last Friday that Jane Dolan chairs. And as you were on the board with her, you remember, you can imagine what it's like. It's run like a train. It's a train. It's really moves. But looking at how they evolved and became necessary, as you're saying, if you called yourself Special District Oversight Commission or something like that, because you're quasi-legislative as you, and Marcia, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you're quasi-legislative as you exist right now. So if you were to, as you say, rebrand or retitle yourselves, because I think growth and growth regulation and facilitation is going to evolve. We're already seeing it with the governor woofing all of the categorical exemptions. I'm working with the Tulare Basin stuff on the flooding down there. So I'm sensitive to what regulation can be done in a positive way.
So I'm gonna let us go. The Smart Growth Commission